Welcome back to another Create Mod video. Today we are going over a chocolate farm from Create Confectionery. There are technically 4 different chocolates as well as hot chocolate. We will be going over a farm that produces 3 of the 4 chocolates, so we're not including ruby chocolate, since that requires dragon's breath, and that's not really something automatable. But if you want to do that, you can always throw in some dragon's breath in this hopper, and that'll make ruby chocolate for you. Otherwise, we're making normal chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, and hot chocolate, and all of the output goes into these 2 barrels here. The only thing you'll need to do is supply this barrel here with a bunch of bottles, and that will start spouting out the hot chocolate into a glass for you. In an hour, this thing produces about 500 chocolate, 250 white chocolate, and initially, while I was testing it, only a stack of dark chocolate, but at the moment, it looks like that is going to switch with the white chocolate. So it's more likely that we're going to get a stack of white chocolate and 250 dark chocolate. You could increase the output of both white and dark chocolate again by just removing the normal chocolate mixer or any component of it, just so that we get more cocoa beans and sugar to the white and dark chocolates. You might be thinking, why in the world do we want chocolate? That's a great question. I don't really know, but it's a really easy to make food source. I have been running this for maybe 5-10 minutes, and we have quite a bit already. This is more than you can ever use, and then separately you get stimulation, rest, and with hot chocolate, regeneration for a certain amount of time, which is really, really helpful. I'm not sure what stimulation does, but we have it, so that's cool. Let's now go over how the farm works. It all starts with this kind of cocoa bean and sugarcane farm here, which collects all of the sugarcane and cocoa beans and drops it off here. They get split up following the sugarcane first, that gets crushed into sugar and goes into all 4 of the basins to make the whatever chocolate thing we're making. The cocoa beans get split into these 2 tunnels here that either go into the normal chocolate makings or the dark chocolate makings, and the other half goes into the crushing wheels here to make crushed cocoa. Crushed cocoa is then brought onto this belt and used for the cocoa butter or cocoa powder. The cocoa butter is used for white and dark chocolate, and the cocoa powder is used for hot chocolate. Milk is gotten from this cow using a deployer and a bucket. The bucket then goes onto this depot, mechanical arm puts it back in the deployer, and that cycle continues. And then milk is brought again to all 4 basins, since they all need it, and then they all have the ingredients they need to make whatever thing they're programmed to make. So all of those are sent over to these separate mechanical pumps here. The chocolate, dark chocolate, and milk chocolate are all put into this basin to get crushed into their corresponding bars, while the hot cocoa is put into the spout, which, when supplied with a bottle on a spout, it'll drop it out and turn it into hot chocolate. This mod does obviously require Create Confectionery, but the second one is Create Liquid Fuels. This mod lets you just pipe lava straight into blaze burners, as you can see. If you don't have this mod, you might have the straw mod, which lets blazes suck up lava through a straw, but if not, you can set up a mechanical arm to pump lava into these with a lava bucket and then refill the lava bucket with a spout. At max speed, this thing uses 21,000 stress units. You can definitely reduce the speed coming in here to probably even 64 and reduce that number down to 5,000 stress units, making this super affordable stress unit wise and kind of component wise here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make it with a block by block tutorial. And of course, for you schematic people, the schematic is in the description. The schematic should be really easy to set up. All you need to do is place in the cocoa beans, sugarcane, water in the leaves here, and to get a cow for milking purposes. And then additionally, you'll need to put an empty bucket on this depot here. But then otherwise you should be good. The only last things you need to do is supply power, obviously not with a creative motor, and an infinite source of lava. If you don't have an infinite source of lava yet, check out my video that I made a couple of weeks ago showing you every way that you can get it. And honestly, just make a big hole. 10,000 lava blocks is really easy to make, so just do that. To start, we're going to need to lay out an 11 wide by 22 deep by 6 tall area. You can obviously increase the length or the width of this if you want a bigger cocoa bean and sugarcane farm, but those are going to be the dimensions that we're using. And we're going to start with the farm itself, since that is the easy part. Over in the very back right hand side, we're going to place in a redstone block, dirt, and then oak leaves. This is going to be the start of our sugarcane farm. And then after the oak leaves, we're just going to do 2 dirt, leaves, 2 dirt, leaves. So 2 dirt, leaves, 2 dirt, leaves. And then we're kind of at the end of the sugarcane farm. And then directly diagonally above these leaves blocks, we're going to place in our first jungle log for the cocoa bean growing part. We're then going to build the jungle log blocks up 5 blocks in total, so 4 more in addition to this one. And you should get up to that 6 block high spot there now. And on the outside, we are just going to fill the whole thing with cocoa beans. And on the inside, we're going to do the first 2, skip a block, and then the next 2. On this skipped block, we're going to place in our leaf and then follow the pattern here, except for the redstone block part. Do not place another one of those, but we're going to go 2 dirt, leaves, 2 dirt, leaves, dirt, and then we're going to leave the redstone block area open. Now that we have our first slice of this, we're going to scooch this over 12 times in total, so 11 more. So we're going to place in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. For the redstone block, obviously, we're not going to just place 11 of those. So we can just place stone blocks, and then at some point in the middle, it doesn't matter, we're going to need to power these normal powered rails here. So just at some point in the middle, we're going to need to place a block of redstone there. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be here, it could be here, it could be here. Doesn't matter. Just one of the places in the center, so that when we place in our powered rails, they will be powered. And then we're going to continue on with the rest of the blocks here, and just placing in dirt and leaves alternating like so. Once we have all that copied over, we're now going to get in our water in every single one of these leaves blocks. You're just going to need to right click all of them with a water bucket. And this is mainly so that the ones up top here can actually hold the water and not drip out everywhere. You can replace these with slabs or something else if you'd like that, but leaves are kind of the easiest to show and I feel like just make the most sense. And once you've done that, we can now get in the sugarcane. You're just going to place these on all the dirt blocks in this farm area. And once we've done that, we can now get in the rails for the minecart that's going back and forth. On the redstone block on the far right backhand side, we're going to place in a controller rail facing back towards the front of the farm. This is so that we can have the minecart go back and forth without needing a block here to increase the size of the farm, because that's just bad. We don't want that. After the controller rail, we're just going to place powered rails all the way along, and they should all be powered with the redstone block that we placed earlier. Again, it doesn't matter what position that's in. And then we're going to build it all the way up to the edge of the sugarcane and then go 2 more blocks with one of them being powered rail and then another controller rail facing back towards the back of the farm. On this controller rail, we're going to place in a cart assembler, and then we're going to right click the side of it, hold it, and click lock rotation. This is so that when this thing's moving back and forth, it doesn't just spin around constantly and mess things up. And now on either side of this block, it can be here or here, we're going to place in a lever, and this will be our on and off switch to either stop or start this minecart contraption from moving. Now we're going to grab the materials that we need for the minecart contraption. We're going to place in our minecart in the cart assembler, and then we're going to place in a barrel, portable storage interface on top of the barrel facing towards the front of the farm, and then we're going to place in 2 smooth stone blocks and go all the way across with it. And then once we reach the cocoa beans, we're just going to place a block right below it. Now on most of these blocks, we're going to place in harvesters. They're going to go on all of them except for the ones with just the oak leaves on it. So on this far side, we're going to place in 2 and then harvesters, skip a block where the leaves are, 2 more, skip a block there. So you should have harvesters over all the sugarcane and all the cocoa beans. And then we're actually going to move this over another 2 blocks so that we can harvest these cocoa beans over here. We're going to drop down 5 blocks until we get to the bottom set of cocoa beans and then just fill this whole line up with harvesters. We're then going to set up a similar like horizontal system as we do up at the top, but connected to the barrel. So we're just going to place smooth stone all the way across with 1 downwards right where the cocoa beans are. And then we're just going to set up harvesters to farm all of the items that we need, and just don't include the area with the oak leaves because there's nothing growing here. We don't need to harvest that. We should see that each mechanical harvester has a sugarcane lane to harvest or a bunch of cocoa beans. Once we have those blocks placed in, we're going to need to glue everything together. So we're just going to glue and glue and glue until everything is glued together. And while you're holding glue, all of these blocks should be highlighted. And if we turn on the cart, it should go back and forth with all of the blocks connected to it. If you're missing a block, just stop it again and make sure it's glued together. Once we've set up this farming module, we're going to place in the bit that collects all the items from the farming module to then process them. So we're going to set up another portable storage interface facing this one with a 1 block gap in between. On both sides of this portable storage interface, we're going to place it in 2 brass funnels facing outwards. And on the one kind of on the right hand side of the farm, we are going to place in a temporary set of blocks here so that, please let me do this, so that we can get hoppers going into the side of this block and then there. So you should have this brass funnel dropping out onto a hopper that faces into another one that goes to the left. Now's a good time to set this filter to sugarcane. So we're going to have sugarcane dropping out here, and it's going to go into a millstone. We're going to break that temporary block and place it in the millstone. So we should have hoppers going forward, then to the side, straight into the millstone. On this brass funnel, we're going to place in cocoa beans, and we'll get to that processing in a second. Below the millstone, we're going to place in 2 shafts horizontally, and then connect those 2 with a belt and place an andesite funnel going out onto this belt. We're then going to place in kind of a whole belt system here So just place in 2 side-by-side shafts with a belt connecting the 2, and then just expand this to 1 before the very front of the farm. Then we're going to place in another 2 belts here, connect those, and place a gearbox that connects this belt to this one. To power this belt here, we're going to need to extend this by 1 and connect it with a gearbox here to this small one. And then to connect this millstone to this belt, we're going to need to set up a vertical gearbox with a cog on top that is just straight up connecting to this millstone. Now that's the sugar processing mostly out of the way. We'll have to obviously route these belts to some more processing over in the future. But for now, let's switch back to cocoa bean processing. We're going to set up 2 belts here. So just place a double shaft that is kind of pointing towards the millstone, but obviously not connected to it. And then 2 more like this, connect both of these with a belt. We're going to place in 2 brass tunnels here. These should connect kind of graphically. And if we were to put items or cocoa beans through this funnel and have these belts spinning, they will evenly distribute it. We're then going to extend this further back one by 1 block here. And then the other one, we're going to place in a shaft and then a shaft diagonally above it so that it kind of goes up by a block there. On this side of the belt here, kind of towards the back of the farm, we're going to place in a barrel and then an andesite funnel going into the barrel. So the cocoa beans that go through here are going to go through the tunnel onto this block into the barrel. On top of this andesite belt funnel here, we're going to place in a mechanical press to press the cocoa beans into some other cocoa thing, crushed cocoa, which we can then crush with crushing wheels into cocoa powder and cocoa butter. Both of those are used for hot chocolate and then white or dark chocolate respectively. So let's get that system in now. We're going to place in a crushing wheel directly below the barrel, if it'll let me. There we go. And then another one we're going to need to place in a temporary block right next to it, so that the barrel is kind of diagonally past it. And then we're going to place in a brass funnel that should drop the item straight into these 2 crushing wheels. Below the crushing wheels, we're going to place in a shaft, another one behind it, connect these 2 with a belt, and then extend this just a couple of blocks for now. We'll get in the specifics later. Next, we can get in the basins that actually make the chocolate or hot chocolate. So we're first going to place in a blaze burner that is in line with this andesite belt funnel at the Y level of these belts. Directly on top of it, we're placing a basin with an andesite funnel going into it from this side here, so that any sugar that gets dropped out gets picked up by this guy. On the back side here, directly under this belt, we're going to place in a hopper that'll take any of the cocoa beans that we have and put them in here. We're then going to place in another blaze burner on the opposite side of this middle belt here. This one is going to be for our dark chocolate. We're going to place a basin on top of that for now, and then we'll move on for a second here. We're going to place in a temporary block and then another blaze burner. And let's actually make that 2 with 2 basins on top of it. This one's going to be hot chocolate. This one's going to be white chocolate. And then we have a gap, dark chocolate. Now we can extend this belt so that it lines up with the white chocolate one. And then at the very end, we're going to place in a depot for the hot chocolate. Now we can place in brass funnels on all 3 of these basins. They will need to be brass because we need to set the filters for them. On the first 2 brass funnel filters, we're going to place in cocoa butter. That'll be for the 2 kind of white or dark chocolates. And then the last one is going to be cocoa powder for the chocolate milk. Hot chocolate. Silly. Now's a good time to connect all of these blaze burners up to power. I mentioned this earlier, but if you are going to use this setup, this does require the Create Liquid Fuels mod, but you can change up this setup so that you have something like we have over for the cow area, where we have a mechanical arm and a bucket, right-clicking the deployer that then right-clicks the cow and drops out the lava onto a thing here. You can do the same thing over here where we have a mechanical arm feeding these blaze burners a lava bucket, and then we refill the lava bucket with a spout. You could also use the straw mod or a couple of other mods that give blaze burners fuel, or you can power it another way, but by default, we're using the Create Liquid Fuels mod. So we're going to place in pipes underneath this blaze burner, connect it up to this one, and then connect that to the other 2 here. Once we've connected all these fluid pipes, we're going to extend this front belt here, and we're going to bring it all the way over so that it is then in line with the basin set here. Once we've done that, we're going to set up another belt that goes to the very end of this basin, but just -1. We're going to connect that up with a belt. And then on this end block, we're going to place a depot so that when we place in andesite funnels, all the sugar that's coming along here is going to get put into these basins. For the final little bit, we're now going to connect up this mechanical pump to lava. So we're going to place in a mechanical pump directly below this far front-facing basin, directly below the belt, and we're going to place a cogwheel powering it. We're then going to just place in a vertical gearbox, a shaft inside of this belt, and then another vertical gearbox so that when this belt's moving, it's powering these 2 gearboxes, powering this cogwheel, powering the mechanical pump. You're going to put in your lava starting from this spot right here. I'm going to be using a creative fuel tank You can't do that, but that's what I'm doing here just to show that you need lava here. And I was actually wrong. We're going to need to place this andesite funnel over on the side of this basin here, on like the front side, instead of the side that it was on before. Now let's get in the milk system. Milk is used for all 4 of these crafting recipes, so it is kind of important. But if you're using just a similar kind of create system to me, it is really easy. The only kind of annoying one is if you're using like Terra Firma Craft, where you can only milk cows a certain amount of time. So hopefully you're not doing that, because that is horrible. To start this, we're going to place a deployer up against this crushing wheel kind of in the center here, and we're going to set the filter of it to a bucket. We can then put a bucket in its hand, and then we're going to get an andesite funnel and place it dropping out onto nothing so far. For the nothing so far fix, we're going to place in an item drain here. This will drain the milk bucket to just get milk out of a pipe, but then it's going to want to like flip around and go onto a belt or another system here. So we're going to squeeze under here and place in a depot right next to this block, so that the bucket has somewhere to go and it'll land on the depot. We're then going to grab our mechanical arm, double right click the deployer. Oops, I put it in his hand. We're going to double right click the deployer so that it doesn't put it in its hand, so that it says deposit to deployer. And then we're going to take items from the depot and we're going to just place it directly next to this item drain, but place it on this stone block here, because otherwise it might think that it can pick stuff up from the item drain, and we don't want that. We're then going to just power this with a cogwheel into a vertical gearbox, into a normal gearbox, and then we're going to leave it for now. Now we can get in at least most of the cow chamber here, so we're going to place in a glass block, or really any other block, onto the spot next to the cogwheel here, and then we're going to place in a block to the side diagonally, and then 2 blocks above the cogwheel, and then we're going to fill it in like this, and then we're going to place 1 more block here. For now, that's all the ones we're going to place. Looking at the main farm, there are kind of 2 andesite encased cogwheels and an encased chain drive in the rest of the spots here, but that is all of the glass that we're going to need to place in for that. We can then move on to filling in this basin with cocoa beans. So we're going to grab a hopper and place it facing into it, just like the normal chocolate one. And then we're going to place in another set of shafts here, connect those with a belt, and then we're good to go. And now let's connect all of these things up to power. So we're going to place in a vertical gearbox connected to this belt here, another one connected to the crushing wheel, and then 1 more to then power the shaft into this belt. We're going to do a similar thing over on this side, but we're going to need to power this belt, this crushing wheel, and this mechanical press. And these 2 have to be in the same direction. So we're going to place in 3 vertical gearboxes going all the way across like this. We're going to place an encased chain drive here, and then 2 more encased chain drives sideways so that they connect to both the belt and the crushing wheels. We're then going to place in a shaft, vertical gearbox, and then a normal gearbox that connects up to this mechanical press. Let's now connect up this item drain where milk is going to be coming out of to all of the basins here. So we're going to first place in a mechanical pump, and let's connect this to power now because it'll get really annoying too in a second. So we're going to place in a cogwheel there, a shaft in this belt, and then a normal gearbox that connects the shaft and the belt to the cogwheel and eventually the mechanical pump. We can then just bring this pipe around the depot here, and then we're going to bring it up and put it inside of these basin things here. And then we're also just going to bring it around and connect it to this basin. So you should have this kind of squiggly line that goes up, connects to these 2, and then over and connects to this one. And then we can connect to the final one just like this. And because we're going to have a lot of other pipes for a lot of other liquids, we're going to contain all of these fluid pipes in copper casings. So just to confirm, you only need 1 copper casing. I am in survival right now. I only have 1 in my inventory, and I am just casing all of these fluid pipes, and I only need 1 to actually do it. So you just need 1, and we're just going to right click all of these milk fluid pipes so that they are contained in an area, and they will not connect to anything else here because that is kind of a hassle to deal with. Next, we're going to connect up all the outputs to these basins to their respective either spouts or basins here. So this is going to be, again, a little bit of a difficult task here, but we're going to do it anyway. So we're going to place in 3 mechanical pumps, all connected to one another if we can physically manage, just like this, and actually a 4th one in the center there. We're going to connect all of them together. Arrows should be facing towards the left of the farm here. And then we're going to place smart fluid pipes into all of these. We're then going to need to grab 4 list filters, and here is the reason why. You're going to set milk bottle, deny, and that's it. And then place them in all of these, and that will just make sure that we don't get milk, because that's the only really thing we care about, because each of them will be separate anyway. The next thing we need to do is case up all of these outputs that they don't combine like this. So the first one is going to be placed in an encased fluid pipe here. This is going to make it so that we can't connect another fluid pipe to it. So this one is always going to just go straight to the right. We're going to do the same thing here, casing, and another one there. And as you can see, these are no longer connected, which is what we want. Then we can connect up the final one for just hot chocolate with a normal fluid pipe, and we don't need to do anything special with it. If you wanted to, you could right click these and make them glass, but you don't have to. Then we're going to connect up all these fluid pipes to the things that they actually need to connect to. These three need us to go into a basin. So we're just going to place a basin down, have pipes going into 3 of the 4 sides of it. Before we connect up this one, we do need to encase this fluid pipe here, because now we're going to put down a spout, and this fluid pipe could technically connect to the spout if we didn't have the casing. But now we should be good. Now it's a good time to connect things to power. We don't have most of the things over here connected to power, and we need to do that. So the best way to do this is to first power the whole thing. So we want to place down our power system and just make sure everything is spinning the correct way. You can do this by just looking at the belts. They should be going around and over and then inwards. You can see that this one is not spinning yet, which we need to fix. To get this belt spinning, we need to do quite a bit of stuff over here, since most of these things also are not spinning yet. The first thing we need to do is come over to the back right-hand side of the farm here and squeeze in directly underneath this portable storage interface, where we place in a shaft here. And this should connect up both of the crushing wheels that we have to power, and that should also connect up this mechanical press, which is good, and these 2 belts here. Now that all that's moving, this mechanical pump should be spinning, and then we can connect up a cogwheel to that, another one above it, and one below it, which should connect up to our mechanical arm. We're then going to connect the one above it up with another cogwheel here. This is going to go into a normal gearbox with a cogwheel on the side to connect to these 4 mechanical pumps. This cogwheel here is going to connect up with this deployer. We're just going to place an encased chain drive to connect the 2, and then one more encased chain drive there. You should see that the deployer is trying to right click this space with the bucket, and once that's happening, we can right click both of these cogwheels with an andesite casing to make the andesite encased cogwheels. There is one more belt that is not moving yet, and it's this and I guess this lava connector, but we'll get to that in a second. First though, we need to hook up the kind of output system that will bring all of the chocolate that we make and all of the hot chocolate that we make into our 2 output chests. Connected to this gearbox here, we're going to place in a shaft, another one right next to it, and connect those 2 with a belt. It should be, with a 1 block gap, directly below the spout here. And then we're going to place a barrel at the end of this with a andesite funnel going into it. This will spout the hot chocolate into the bottle and put the hot chocolate into this basin. We're then going to place in a depot here and then connect up a diagonal belt directly behind it. This is going to have all the items from the basin drop out onto this. We are going to need to set a list filter to the basin itself. We have it set to bar of chocolate, bar of dark chocolate, bar of white chocolate, and bar of ruby chocolate. And if you don't have those yet, you can just drag and drop them from JEI just by clicking and dragging. Once we've done that, we can place in another barrel there with an andesite funnel going into it. And then we just need one more barrel to drop out the bottles onto this belt here. So we're just going to get another andesite funnel, and this will be where your bottles go. Now, if we connect up this belt to power, just right here, and going the right way, we'll connect it up to everything here, including this belt. So we're just going to grab a shaft and then a gearbox, if I can grab one. Connect that up. This should be going the right way, down, and then this belt should be going forward, away from us. Now, we still need to put in the mechanical mixers and the mechanical press to make the bars of chocolate. So let's do that now. We're going to place in a mechanical press directly above this basin here. And then we're going to place in mechanical mixers on top of those 3 encased fluid pipes, and then one more on top of that fluid pipe. And they should all be directly above the basins. We're going to connect these 3 with a cogwheel in the center, another cogwheel connecting those 2. And then on that cogwheel we just placed, we're going to connect it up with a gearbox, and there we go, it's powered. We still need to connect up this mechanical press to power, so we're going to rotate it so that it's facing this way. Then we're going to get a vertical gearbox on top of this cogwheel, right click it, and just connect it up with a shaft. And if you have a low enough speed, you will notice that this has a speed requirement, and that is at least 32. So I would just set it to at least 32. You could probably speed it up if you want, but then we should be good. And I know that's crazy to say, but if we grab some bottles, put it into this barrel here, come over here and turn on our minecart, we should see that everything is getting harvested here, and the sugarcane is going to drop out. That's just because it grew to 2 blocks tall, and this block is not getting harvested. But after the first kind of harvest here, that's not going to happen. So now we should see that this sugarcane is getting millstoned into sugar. Sugar is going along this. We just saw cocoa powder go into here, which is great. We should see cocoa beans in this hopper here if we get to it. And we do actually have cocoa beans and sugar in this basin. Oh, one thing I forgot to do is we are getting cocoa beans dropping out onto this cogwheel because it's not a full block. So just right click it with andesite casing. And now if we throw cocoa beans on here, it will stop. So far, everything is still working. We obviously aren't getting any output here because we don't have a cow yet. But I wanted to make sure that all of the farming equipment and stuff is looking good, and it is. If you hover over all the basins, you should see that this has cocoa beans and sugar. This one, in this spot way down here, which is impossible to reach, has cocoa beans and cocoa butter and sugar, which is great. This one just has sugar, but that's because the other one is full of cocoa butter and the cocoa butter just hasn't gotten there. And this has cocoa powder and sugar. Now we're going to need to get a cow. Obviously, you can't spawn it in, but I'm cheating because I'm in creative. But once we get a cow in there, we should see that milk is going onto this area. If you have sugarcane on this depot, just take it off and you should be good. And then we should get an infinite, basically, supply of milk. And we should see that, yes, chocolate was just squished into our first bar of dark chocolate. If it's too slow for you, you can obviously speed it up. That will increase the amount of stress units used to, I think, 20,000, so be careful. But once we do that, we are getting a ton of chocolate. You could probably set this to 64 or 32 RPM, though, and it should keep up with the speed of the farm behind it. But that's the farm. We are already getting hot chocolate and dark chocolate in here, which is incredible news. If you aren't getting enough white chocolate for your liking, you can set this filter to exactly 8 and then set this funnel way down here to exactly 3 or exactly 2. And that'll make just more cocoa butter head over to this one. So if you want more white chocolate, you can easily do that. But that's the chocolate farm. It gets you, honestly, a ton of food, and this might be my next food source for whatever next season I do, because I did make a kind of OP one, but I have to manually craft it, and that's not fun. So this is a really cool idea. It gives you some buffs, whether it be regeneration or stimulation. I don't know what that does, but it's something. And it's really easy to make. You can make a ton of it really quickly, and this little area produces quite a bit. And it wasn't even that hard to make, but I hope you all liked it. If you did, be sure to leave a like, consider subscribing if you're new, and I will see you all next time. Peace.